Hey everybody, this is a quick video on face mask exception forms in the state of Pennsylvania. My name is Josh Hogan. I'm one of the leaders of Reopen Bucks, the group, and specifically what I'm going to be doing here on this video is urging you to fill out this form for your child if you are in a district that allows face mask exception forms to be simply filled out by the parent and you believe that your child is negatively impacted by wearing a mask. I'm going to address a few concerns. Namely, the biggest concern I'm hearing as a leader of Reopen Bucks is, I don't want to lie. I don't want to claim a medical condition or a disability that my child does not have. To that, I'd like to simply read straight out of the order. This is the order from Secretary Beam in the Pennsylvania Department of Health. Section 3, Part B is the exception if wearing a face covering would either cause a medical condition or exacerbate an existing one, including respiratory issues that impede breathing, a mental health condition, or a disability. Me personally, as a parent, I do believe that masks impede breathing, which is a big deal for a child. It's not that bad. I could probably go for a run in a mask. I wouldn't do that because that's kind of dorky and dumb. But when I'm thinking about my child, I do believe that they will slightly inhibit breathing. And for a small growing child, I think that my child needs to breathe as much as possible without inhibition. Furthermore, it talks about a mental health condition. If you believe that your child learns even slightly better without a mask on than with a mask on, then you do not want them to have a mental health condition created by wearing the mask. Okay, learning loss, the potential deprivation of learning, which over how much time could lead to reduced IQ, reduced emotional cognitive abilities, etc. Yeah, that applies. I want to be very clear. I am not ever asking anybody to lie, okay? If there's a requirement that your kid has asthma or your kid has some other documented issue and you don't, your kid does not, then you don't lie. But as I read the order right now, as a parent of small children, I read that and say, that applies to my kids. Essentially, if you feel that your child's growth, development, well-being, and health will be in any way negatively impacted by wearing the mask, then Section 3, Part B of the order applies to you and you are accepted. Now, there's a few other things that I think have concerned some people. A common one I'm hearing is, will my kid be segregated? If I have a face mask exception form for my child, and let's say they're one of only like 10-20% of the school that's unmasked, will they be segregated and thrown in a closet, or they have to sit away from everybody else in the class while they watch the class have fun and do labs and whatever? Short answer is no, there will be no segregation with this. Pennsylvania Department of Education, PDE, put out FAQ to this order on Friday, where there was a specific question about that issue, and they simply said you practice all the same normal things like good hygiene, you socially distance when you can, etc., etc. Absolutely nothing about treating kids differently. In fact, when kids are treated differently, that will be a very big deal and a problem. It will not happen systemically. It may happen in specific classrooms because teachers kind of lose their minds, don't understand what they're supposed to do and not to do, and those issues will have to be dealt with by parents on a case-by-case basis, but they will be relatively rare and isolated, and they will be an issue that the district deals with immediately because there's not to be segregation. Another one is schools are saying, okay, if you fill out this exception form, then we're going to follow up with you to document this and potentially put your kid on a 504 plan or IEP. A scare tactic, essentially, to try to get you to not sign the form. Okay, if you want to follow up with me, shoot me an email. I will tell you, no, don't do it. Not interested, thank you. You can even sign at the bottom of your exception form, write in a line that says, I do not authorize any further blah, 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 blah. You could put it in your email when you email your form, I'm not interested in any follow-up on this issue. Anything like that, you deal with it when it comes. It's not saying that they are going to force a annotation, a 504, an IEP, any of that stuff on your kid. It's just saying, maybe we'll try to follow up with you. So you just say no when the time comes. Another thing, and this is kind of the last big one that I want to address, is liability. There's a lot of fake news being pushed out there about liability. Parents who fill out these exception forms will be sued. Say somebody's kid gets sick. They can come and they can sue you because your kid got them sick. Let me just tell you, the only way, there is exactly one way and one way only, as of right now with our current scientific processes, to prove that one individual, a specific individual, gave COVID to another individual. You have to sequence the virus on both of them. So you have to get a viral sample, a culture from both of them, which means they both need to be tested, and you need to genetically sequence that test in order to prove that genetically the virus hopped from this kid to that kid. That is not being done. Sequences is not really a thing outside of some, very small scale studies that are happening. So there is no real way to prove who got what from whom, especially not in November and December when cases explode and there's basically COVID everywhere you go, everywhere. Furthermore, these exception forms are student documentation, okay? These will not be like on the internet for anybody to go look, oh, who has an exception form in? Let me bully them or bully their family or try to sue the 1,000 kids in this school district that filled out an exception form. That's not gonna happen, okay? These, because they are student information, they're not just gonna be widely available. So legally, it's a very interesting scare tactic. Look, there is a legitimate concern about legal liability on board directors, school boards who don't follow the order. But if your school has a face mask exception form, whether it requires a doctor's signature or not, your board is following the letter of the law. They are enforcing the mask order as worded from the Secretary of Health. And furthermore, they are allowing exceptions in accordance with the same order. So they are completely covered. The news would have you believe that they're kicking legal liability down to you as the parent, but there's no real way to prove who transmitted to who. Furthermore, there's going to be tons and tons of kids in these schools without masks on. How are we going to prove any of this nonsense? And it's just kind of absurd on its face. It's not something that's ever happened before. It would be completely novel, and the courts would have to decide to take up massive, massive volume of cases. It's just not going to happen. It's an absurdity on its face. So, long-winded video just to say I'm urging people to take advantage of it, and the number one thing I'd like you to think about in taking advantage of it is, what if you were in a school district that did not have this exception form? What if you were in a district that required a doctor's signature or a 504 IEP in order for your kid to be accepted? You would probably really want to be in one of the districts where you do have the freedom to choose by just signing a piece of paper. I know it seems a little bit it's unfair to have to sign a piece of paper. It really is. It should be optional the way it was optional almost everywhere throughout the state a week ago. However, these school districts are being very, very brave by doing the right thing and keeping the decision in your hands. I think the school districts that do that, you should be thankful you're in that district. Fill out the form, give your kid the option, send them without a mask. The number one thing, no matter whether you use the exception or not, wherever you are, the number one thing is if you believe that your child is negatively impacted by wearing a mask, you have a duty, a responsibility as a parent to get your kid into that school without a mask. That's the best thing for them. So that's it. Hopefully that information was useful. I'll catch you guys later.